He scrolls through his phone at 2 a.m., eyes glazed, searching for something he cannot name. Another video, another snack, another distraction. The man without purpose does not live, he merely exists. This is the epidemic no one talks about. Millions of men trapped in a prison of their own making, where the bars are made of comfort and the locks are made of pleasure. Empty, numb, lost. Nietzsche warned us about this creature. He called him the last man, the one who blinks and says we have invented happiness while feeling nothing at all. But here's what no one tells you. Pleasure isn't the enemy. The absence of meaning is. And when a man has no mountain to climb, no battle to fight, no purpose burning in his chest, he fills that void with the only thing that requires nothing from him: sensation, distraction, the slow death of becoming comfortable. What you're about to discover will disturb you, because you'll recognize yourself in it. The empty throne. Picture a king without a kingdom. He sits on his throne, but there's nothing to rule, no subjects to serve, no battles to win. So what does he do? He orders more wine, more entertainment, more distractions. This is the modern man without purpose. Nietzsche saw this coming over a century ago. He wrote about the last man, a creature so comfortable, so safe, so devoid of aspiration that he no longer creates, no longer strives, no longer suffers for anything greater than himself. The last man lives longest. We have invented happiness, say the last men, and they blink. That blinking, it's not contentment, it's the absence of fire. When you have no purpose, you have no organizing principle for your life. Every decision becomes arbitrary. Why wake up early? Why work hard? Why sacrifice today for tomorrow? Without answers to these questions, pleasure becomes the default operating system. Not because it fulfills you, but because it requires nothing from you. And that's the first trap. Pleasure's lie. Here's what the pleasure merchants don't want you to know. Every hit of dopamine you chase is borrowed from your future self. Neuroscience has confirmed what philosophers suspected: the brain adapts. What thrilled you yesterday bores you today, so you need more, louder, faster, stronger. This is called hedonic adaptation, and it's a biological trap. More never enough. The pornography that once excited requires something more extreme. The food that satisfied demands larger portions. The games that entertain need longer sessions. You're not enjoying more, you're feeling less. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, understood this deeply. He witnessed men who had everything stripped away: comfort, pleasure, security, and yet some found meaning that kept them alive. Others, with access to the same scarce resources, crumbled. If this pattern is resonating with something inside you, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring these depths with me, because what comes next explains why pleasure alone always fails us. The void within. There's a space inside every man that screams to be filled. Carl Jung called it the hole where meaning should live. When purpose doesn't fill it, pleasure tries to. But pleasure is the wrong shape. It's like pouring water into a vessel with no bottom. No matter how much you pour, it never fills. The void remains, and now you've wasted your resources too. This is why successful men often feel emptier than anyone. They achieved the goals society gave them: money, status, comfort, and found nothing waiting at the top. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. Frankl discovered that humans need tension. We need resistance. We need something to push against, something that demands we become more than we are. Without that creative tension, we collapse into ourselves. The void doesn't want to be filled with sensation. It wants to be filled with significance. And there's a profound difference. Comfort's cage. The most dangerous prisons don't have walls, they have cushions, soft beds, endless entertainment, climate control, everything you need to never grow. This is comfort's cage, and most men don't even know they are in it. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years ago. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, wrote constantly about the dangers of soft living. Not because pleasure was evil, but because too much of it makes you weak. Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. When you remove all friction from your life, you remove all growth. The man who never struggles never develops. The muscles that aren't challenged atrophy. The mind that isn't tested becomes dull. Soft, weak, trapped. And here's the cruel irony. The more comfortable you become, the more you fear discomfort. Until eventually the smallest challenge feels unbearable. You've trained yourself to be fragile. The cage didn't capture you, you built it yourself, one comfortable choice at a time. The last man. Nietzsche's prophecy has come true. Look around you. The last man is everywhere. He doesn't create, he consumes. He doesn't strive, he scrolls. He doesn't love deeply, he swipes. Mediocrity. He has traded the possibility of greatness for the guarantee of comfort. And he calls this wisdom. He mocks those who still dream, who still struggle, who still believe in something beyond the next dopamine hit. Why suffer when you can be comfortable, he asks. Why risk when you can be safe? But Nietzsche saw through this illusion. The last man isn't happy, he's numb. He hasn't escaped suffering, he's escaped meaning. And without meaning, pleasure becomes a slow-acting poison. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. The man with purpose endures gladly what would destroy the purposeless man. Because suffering with meaning is infinitely more fulfilling than pleasure without it. This isn't philosophy, it's the architecture of the human soul. Borrowed time. Every moment spent in meaningless pleasure is stolen from your potential self. The man you could become, the impact you could make, the legacy you could leave. We are not given a short life, but we make it short. Seneca wrote these words to remind us that time is our only non-renewable resource. You can always make more money. You can rebuild relationships. But the hours lost to distraction, they're gone forever. The average person spends 4 hours daily on social media. That's 60 days per year. By age 75, you'll have spent over 12 years scrolling through other people's highlight reels. 12 years. What could you have built? What could you have become? What purpose could you have fulfilled? Wasted, gone forever. The Stoics practiced memento mori, remember death. Not to be morbid, but to be urgent. When you remember that your time is limited, suddenly watching another episode feels different. That's not relaxation, that's your life force draining away. Finding the why. So how do you escape? How do you break free from pleasure's grip and find your purpose? It starts with a brutal question. If you removed all distractions from your life tomorrow, what would remain? The answer terrifies most men. Because for many, the answer is nothing. The distractions aren't filling time, they're hiding the void. But here's what Viktor Frankl discovered in the death camps. Meaning can be found in 3 ways. Through creation, building something that outlasts you. Through experience, deeply loving someone or something. Through attitude, choosing how you face unavoidable suffering. 1. Create something meaningful. 2. Love someone deeply. 3. Transform suffering into growth. You don't need to save the world. Your purpose might be raising children with intention, building a business that solves real problems, mastering a craft that demands everything from you. Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose. The size of your purpose matters less than its presence. The voluntary burden. Here's the paradox that changes everything. The cure for empty pleasure is voluntary suffering, not masochism, not punishment, but choosing to carry a burden that matters. Choose your struggle. The man who lifts weights doesn't suffer accidentally. He chooses the pain because it builds him. The entrepreneur doesn't work 18-hour days by accident. The mission demands it. The father doesn't sacrifice his comfort unwillingly. His children deserve it. When you voluntarily shoulder a meaningful burden, pleasure transforms. It becomes rest that restores rather than escape that weakens. The man who carries nothing feels the weight of everything. Jordan Peterson often speaks of this principle. Pick up something heavy and carry it. Not because suffering is good, but because the right kind of suffering aligns you with purpose. Without a burden worth carrying, you become burdened to yourself. You collapse under the weight of meaninglessness. But when you choose your struggle, when you find your mountain to climb, suddenly the view from halfway up is more satisfying than any pleasure at the base. Awakening fire. Inside you, there's a fire that's been smothered by comfort, buried under years of easy choices, suffocated by the soft blanket of distraction. But it's not dead. Dormant. Every time you feel that restless emptiness after hours of meaningless consumption, that's your purpose, trying to breathe. Every time you look at your life and feel a vague sense of waste, that's your potential, knocking on the walls of your comfort zone. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. Thoreau wrote those words almost 2 centuries ago, and they are more true now than ever. But desperation is not defeat. It's information. It's your soul telling you that something needs to change. The phoenix must burn before it rises. The fire that feels like destruction is actually transformation. And it starts the moment you stop numbing yourself and start listening to what the emptiness is trying to tell you. Becoming alive. There's a difference between existing and living, between breathing and being alive. The man trapped in pleasure's cycle exists, his heart beats, his lungs function, his body persists, but he is not alive. To live is the rarest thing in the world. Most people exist, that is all. Real life begins when you stop asking how can I feel good, and start asking what demands to be done through me. Real life begins when discomfort becomes a compass rather than an enemy. When you wake up with fire instead of dread. When your days are structured around something that matters rather than something that numbs. Purpose over pleasure. This isn't about becoming a monk or rejecting all enjoyment. Pleasure in its proper place as rest, as celebration, as connection is beautiful, but pleasure in the throne where purpose should sit. That's the slow death Nietzsche warned us about. You weren't designed to be comfortable. You were designed to climb, to build, to overcome, to become. And that becoming, it's still possible, starting now. Pleasure without meaning is a cage disguised as freedom. This is the ancient truth that Nietzsche saw, that Frankl survived, that the Stoics practiced. When a man has no mountain to climb, he fills the void with sensations that leave him emptier than before. But you've made it this far. You've looked into the mirror this video holds up. And that takes courage. Awareness is the first step. The cage door isn't locked. It never was. You simply forgot that you could leave. That somewhere inside you exists a purpose worth suffering for, a mountain worth climbing, a fire worth feeding. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Find your why. Carry your burden. Let pleasure be your rest, not your master. And watch what happens when a purposeless man finally awakens. If you made it this far, comment fire awaken to prove you're among those ready to climb. The wisdom of the ages is yours. Use it well. If this opened something in you, hit like and subscribe. The vault has more treasures waiting.